So with the ongoing summit today, what are the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. trying to get out of their summit, not only in regards to denuclearization, but also in areas of economy, security, and politics? Our Park Hee-jun breaks it down for us.
For weeks, it's been clear North Korea and the United States, or at least Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, wanted the summit to happen despite some hiccups along the way. They have their respective goals and will be doing their utmost to achieve them in Singapore. The Trump administration's ultimate goal is North Korea's CVID, the regime's complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. President Trump initially demanded an all-in-one immediate package deal. The goal remains the same, but recently he's been tempering expectations about what can be achieved through one meeting, saying it will likely require a step-by-step approach. He's hinted several times that resolving the nuclear issue will not be a quick fix. And Washington is pushing to specify the method and timetable of Pyongyang's nuclear disarmament through the form of an agreement. What North Korea wants, however, is more complex. Pyongyang is demanding what many call CVIG, the complete, verifiable, and irreversible guarantee of the regime's security. This concept can be seen from political, economic, and military aspects. Politically, North Korea would have to be acknowledged as a normal nation, and Pyongyang would want to establish diplomatic ties with the U.S. and host each other's embassies. Economically, North Korea needs to scale down the level of international sanctions imposed on it, as the security of the regime requires a stable and robust economy. The North wants economic assistance as well, especially aid that will help it stand on its own feet. Finally, militarily, North Korea has been outspoken in wanting to avoid military threats. It's been highly critical of joint military exercises between South Korea and the U.S. To ensure there are no future threats, the regime will seek a declaration of the end of the Korean War and even further a peace treaty. The best scenario leading to a somewhat successful summit would be a fair exchange between the U.S. vision of CVID and North Korea's CVIG.
There needs to be a fair balance between CVID and CVIG. The best result would involve North Korea agreeing to denuclearize within a short period of time. I don't think that will happen in Singapore, but nonetheless, the talks are greatly significant and will add momentum to the next possible round of talks.
As President Trump has been saying, the Singapore summit is just the beginning and a process. More rounds of talks between the two leaders are expected before they reach a compromise. But nevertheless, the world will be watching how Tuesday's unprecedented, historic event unfolds. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
The United Nations is ready to play a key role in the verification process of North Korea's denuclearization if asked by the interested parties. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Monday that the International Atomic Energy Agency plays a critical role in verification and has a mandate to apply safeguards on all nuclear material used for peaceful purposes, as well as material removed from military programs. Guterres also added that he hopes to see the two leaders make a breakthrough and that the summit could be a promising development towards global peace and security. Also in Singapore is retired NBA Hall of Fame star Dennis Rodman, also a longtime friend of North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Rodman arrived in Singapore just hours before the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. are set to meet for their historic one-on-one this morning and tweeted his arrival after midnight. The high-profile international figure, who is one of the few Americans to have met with both the leaders of North Korea and the U.S., said he would, quote, give whatever support is needed to his friends, perhaps meaning both Kim and Trump. White House officials, however, said that Rodman will play no official role in the diplomatic negotiations, and President Trump even said last week that Rodman had not been invited to the summit at all. And now we're seeing the video there with Mr. Trump and Mr. Kim. They're done with their working lunch. And they're now, I think they're set for a walk together, yeah? I think. Or maybe they'll pose for a picture? No? Okay. They had their meal with their aides after they talked alone for about 40 minutes, one-on-one, face-to-face, with their interpreters by their sides. And then they were joined by their aides on their sides for extended talks, and then they had their working lunch with more of their aides joining them, including some of the main figures from their respective sides. And now they're on to a stroll. How nice is that, Ji-won, right?
Yeah, that stroll reminds us the similar sight that we saw when inter-Korean summit talks were held. South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un held a long stroll together.
Really very positive. I think better than anybody could have expected. Top of the line. Really good. We're going right now for a signing.
What do you decide?
Chairman Kim, any comments about the presentation?
What are you signing, sir?
We're going to be announcing that in a couple of minutes.
Mr. Kim?
Now, we heard Mr. Trump just saying that it went better, way better than anyone would have expected. And he said some signing is going to be done.
Yes.
And then reporters were asking, what signing are you talking about? And then he said that's going to be announced in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, the
Yes.
signing will be very significant. It means that they agreed on
Something.
the final the document, that all eyes are on that, whether the CVID will be on the document or not.
And President Trump sounded very confident there.
Yes.
While he was just, throwing out that comment with Mr. Kim by his side.
Right. It seems that the talks went, I think, as they planned, or even better than that, because Trump sounded very confident and satisfied.
Right. I mean, in his previous tweets up until the summit, he kind of seemed to be, trying to tone down all the expectations. But now coming out of the working lunch there with Kim Jong-un, we're seeing them in a very, being very cordial to each other, I guess. And Mr. Trump is sounding very confident about some signing to do. In a couple of minutes, they're going to announce it. So we'll definitely look forward to what comes out of that.
Yeah, this will obviously be the historic moment. If that document comes and if that really hits the center of this North Korean nuclear crisis that continued for decades, there will be a really a big
It will be a
moment.
breakthrough.
Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully we'll see something close to a breakthrough today. Now they're talking to, we see Kim Yo-jong by Kim Jong-un's side over there, who didn't join them for extended talks, right? They're talking. We can't hear what they're saying, but can't really make what they're saying out of their expressions. But yeah, we're definitely looking forward to what kind of agreement would come out of that. So I honestly thought the working lunch would be a little longer than expected, knowing that a lot of important figures were attending the lunch with the two
think
leaders.
this could be a positive sign as well, that the talks end earlier than expected means that they don't have much more to argue, I guess. They agreed on the basic core of the talks, or they might not agree, but from Trump's remarks just now that he seems very satisfied, seems that something very tangible will come out of this talks, I guess.
Well, definitely seems that Mr. Kim is saying something. It seems that he's kind of checking something. It almost seems like, perhaps going over what they talked about. Because we do see a language barrier between the two of them, so they can't really talk directly to each other. They have to have their interpreters.
Yes, just
Speaking
to
for
make
them.
sure that what they really mean delivers
Gets
to
put
them.
on the table and on the agreement, right? Yes. Okay, we see them shaking hands, we see them nodding, and they're smiling.
Right.
Yeah, we saw Mr. Kim smiling pretty.
Yeah, we saw
Big
a
over there.
big smile on him.
And he walked over on the other side. So that was a short stroll that they took compared to the one that we
Right.
saw between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un back in April 27th.
That
But-
went pretty long.
But what's interesting is that we didn't really know what would come out of the summit. I mean, we didn't know how they're going to announce it, if they're going to announce anything at all. You know, we didn't really have that much detail coming
Right.
from the North Korean side, especially. Okay, so we saw them saying their goodbyes, and they headed back to their own sides. Okay.
So, like after the planned working lunch, they didn't really announce detailed schedule of the two leaders.
Right.
So I guess it's just our guess whether they will have the joint press conference maybe
Right.
or the signing of the document. So we will just have to watch
And
how
see.
this the result.
Right. If they're going to do it separately or if they're. Because all we knew at this point was that Mr. Trump was going to hold a press briefing
Right.
in the evening before he departs for the U.S. And we knew that Mr. Kim was reportedly going back home earlier,
Yep.
but we
seems-
didn't know what would come after that lunch. And we heard that they were going on a stroll, but that stroll turned out to be quite short, and
Yes.
during which Mr. Trump said that, you know, it was top of the line. Everything went much better than expected, and they're going to sign something. And the reporter asked, what are you going to sign? And we're going to announce that in a couple of minutes. That's what we heard during their short stroll,
Right.
and the reporters all hovering around them.
It will be such a sight if we can able to see the two leaders stand together just like normal country
Right.
relationships, and they stand by each one and they get even questions from reporters. That will be a really historic moment, but we will have to see how the agreement will be announced by the two leaders.
I mean, in that short encounter, they were talking over something with their aides on their side, and we saw Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, and we also saw U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton also on the side of Mr. Trump. And they were trying. It almost seemed like they're trying to, clarify some stuff, like last-minute
Right.
things, and then they actually ended up shaking hands, and they're all smiles, and they departed their way.
But
So-
even though that the last minute changes, seems like they have agreed on the very core thing. That's why Trump sounded so confident, even more confident than he used to. And Kim Jong-un had this big smile at the end of.
their handshake, right? Although we saw only the backside of Mr. Trump, so we didn't really exactly
Better than anybody could have expected. Top of the
see.
line. Really good. We're going right now for a signing.
Chairman, do you have any comments about denuclearization?
What are you signing, sir? We're going to be announcing that in a couple of minutes.
Mr. Kim?
What's interesting is that Mr. Kim really didn't say anything, though, while Mr. Trump was saying something. I mean, he could have definitely said something because we have interpreters, over there. And if he says something, they would have definitely interpreted it in English for the reporters.
Right.
But it was only Mr. Trump saying it, and reporters were asking, obviously, about the sticking point of today's summit, which is the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and dismantling North Korea's nuclear program. And we heard something very important in regards to that. So,
Really very positive.
But
I
looking
think
at
better
the Kim
than
Jong-un's
anybody could have
face,
expected.
he
Top
seems
of
to
the
have
line.
this
Really good.
very
We're going right now
gentle
for a signing.
little smiles on his face all along
What are you signing?
the way.
right, and we're seeing the interpreter interpreting what Mr. Trump said to Kim Jong-un on the side, so we know that Kim knows what Mr. Trump said to the reporters, obviously. Like we said, devil is in the details, and hopefully we're going to be seeing them announced soon.
Yes.
And Mr. Trump said in a couple of minutes the announcement will be made. So.
Great. We had a really fantastic meeting. A lot of progress. Really very positive. I think better than anybody could have expected. Top of the line. Really good. We're going right now for a signing.
Chairman, do you have
A
any
lot of
comments about
progress made, too.
denuclearization?
What are you signing, sir?
Because we definitely know that there are a lot of last-minute negotiations going on between officials from North Korea and the U.S., right?
Right.
Like we heard in the previous reports, from 3 different channels. We saw them meeting and negotiating up until today.
But
So-
as a Korean who watched the inter-Korean relations and how North Korea and the U.S. have some conflicts over decades, it's sort of really amazing to see the moment
A really
right now.
fantastic meeting.
Yeah, like we
A lot
talked
of
with
progress, really very
our
positive. I think
expert
better
just
than
a
anybody
moments
could
ago. I
have
mean, it's
expected.
remarkable seeing such progress being made in such a short period of time. If you look back, those are 2 men who were threatening each other
Right.
for military options.
Up until last year.
And they're talking about the little rocket man coming from Trump and nuclear buttons. They're literally trading threats of war just months before, and now they come here. And they're both, it's the first time ever that a U.S. or a North Korean, sitting North Korean leader and U.S. president.
And for Kim
Met.
Jong-un, it was his first visit to a foreign country except Panmunjom in China,
Right.
since he became the leader of the country back in 2012. So this moment is very
Right.
not usual for him, but
I
this
think
might
it's the
bring-
first time that a North Korean leader has actually stepped his foot outside of his country to go to a non-communist state other than
Right.
China since like 19,
That's
60s.
since
So,
1965 when former and late leader Kim Il-sung visited Indonesia back in
Right.
1965. So this is a very important step for North Korea if it really becomes to be a normal part of the international community, or the previous sanctions would continue.